Welcome to MMA Fancast. My name is Luke Mason, and I'm excited to have back on the show a friend of mine and an often guest on the show and an undefeated new champion, 247 Fighting Championships. Let me get the featherweight champ of the world, Lucas, the Sniper Seibert. Lucas, welcome to the show.
What's up, man? How you doing?
Sorry for stuttering. I usually think of you at bantamweight because you've done 4 fights at bantamweight, were undefeated, bumped up, so your teammate could go to the bantamweight title at 135 at Brandenburg 17, and you got the featherweight title. So let's first talk, before we talk about the fight, what did you feel like at 145? Do you still like fighting at bantamweight? Was it really nice to be able to fight at featherweight? Let's talk about that weight bump.
It was pretty nice. It was pretty nice to be able to fight at featherweight, to be honest. Just like, not having to worry too much about the diet leading into it, right? And just like being able to focus on the fighting, right? Because that's what the amateur career is supposed to be, based on just skill development, right? Not that I wasn't doing that as much in my other camps, but it just gave you like a little bit more time. You're not worried about like, being depleted for practice, stuff like that. But I think when I go pro, I'm going to be at bantamweight. So, and we'll talk down what the next plans are. But, my next fight's probably going to be at bantamweight if I were to guess.
Well, we'll definitely get there because obviously now that you're the champ, they have beautiful 247 belts. I mean, they really look nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, they absolutely are. Great looking belts. So I always like to play Jim Mooney Jr. He's the head matchmaker for 247, as you know. And on some of these interviews, I always joke with him afterwards that I'm trying to take his job. I'm not. He's great at his job, but sometimes I kid around. So we'll definitely get to asking you if you want to defend the 45-pound belt or drop down to 35. Now that, of course, unfortunately, your teammate and stout fighter, Miguel Francisco, did not win at 135. So that allows you to potentially even fight the champion that defeated him. So there's a lot moving parts. But let's talk about the fact that you took on Cam Allgeier. You both were incredibly high ranked at bantamweight according to Tapology. He was 6-1. You were 4-0 coming in the fight. Just as a quick review, because I talked to you about it before the fight. You were on board with fighting him, obviously. What did you see as the main reason to take him on? And then obviously we'll get into how the fight went.
The main reason to take him on, that's interesting. I think one is he was the best guy I was offered. I think at like in the area, I could like leave Pittsburgh and go get bigger ammy fights if I absolutely needed to. But Cam is like he's in the backyard. He's 6-1. Made sense. I think for both of us, it made sense. He wanted to come back. Something about me was enticing for him. And worked out. We got booked pretty fast. I think it was the first fight booked on the card. And it was there wasn't much change of plans after that.
Yeah, and that is nice. There's always I was watching the Pittsburgh Combat Sports podcast today. It was like 2 hours long of them talking about the fights last night. And Jim Mooney and Ryan Middleton and Hunter Hamasek, they all said, like, in the fight world, fights falling apart. It's rare to get fights that start off 8-10 weeks in advance and go all the way. But obviously a lot of fights did. And you and Cam were one of those that was always planned to be on the card, always planned to be a featherweight title, and came to fruition. So that's kind of a nice thing. It helps you sort of not have to deal with a last minute change. So that's kind of a cool thing.
Yeah.
Three rounds, if you can. Let's break down one round at a time. So you're in round one. How did it go for you? What were you looking to establish, and kind of how did you think round one went?
Round one went pretty similar to how I imagined it. I knew Cam was going to try to get it down to the ground. Not that he had like a disrespect for my wrestling. I think he just like that he's a ground guy. Which is another reason why I wanted to take the fight. I thought, two ground guys, I would be able to strike a little bit more, which obviously worked out the way I thought. And he got it on a really good shot. Picked me up in the air. I rolled, and I didn't get my hips all the way over, which I usually can, but Cam had a pretty like hard like bear hug, and kind of just when I settled in guard, I was on my back for 3 seconds, did a old 4 to 6 class, shrimped out, got out, did a Granby. He was on my back. I in like a crab ride position. I ended up kind of reversing him, and then went back to a striking battle from there, where I did pretty well.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to do Luke's Keys for victory, which was kind of fun. And you obviously you're in there fighting your fight, but you hit a lot of the things that I was thinking would lead to your victory. And I obviously came up with things that would lead to Cam's victory. And one of it was ground, getting inside it. That body lock is what he used. But you ended up really, and that's we've talked about it before. Amateur is all about fighting talent that will make you increase your talent. And that was hats off to Cam for being the opponent that kind of pushed you like that. But you're striking at distance, your ability to be, obviously you were a D1 wrestler. He's a great wrestler. And we talked about it on the broadcast. Most of the time when two great ground guys, grapplers face each other, ends up being a striking battle, which is exactly what ended up mostly happening. And, your coach, Mike Wilkinson, told me your frame is fantastic at both featherweight and bantamweight, being very long and being able to fight long. Now, I got to call your first ever debut fight, your first ever MMA fight, and you had basically what was a walk-off KO from a long cross. And you didn't really strike from range after that. You had a lot of fights where you were able to get in, take down, ground and pound. Last night, you struck from range a lot. What was it like to be able to go, minute after minute? There was a lot of ground stuff. We'll go into round 2 in a second. But what was it like to really showcase your length and striking at range?
It was awesome because I've been working on it so much, right? I spend, I don't even know, every day, like 2 to 3 hours every day, working on my striking, right? I'm in there with Will Morrow, with Jesse Sudas, holding pads. I'm constantly working on my striking, and I had a belief in myself, right? I think, I try, you try not to listen to other people. I really try not to compare myself to other people because it sets you back. But like I heard a lot of stuff, leading into this fight, and especially like when Cam's podcast came out, and I was like, everybody in my gym thinks I'm gonna win, and in my head I was like, well, they see me every day, they know what I do, like I'm like, and I think there was like a little bit of a misconception on my striking, because the last time I was in Pittsburgh was October. July, my striking wasn't. I was just an athletic wrestler kid that came spinning and throwing and doing whatever I wanted. October, I was a little bit more refined. Now it's like night and day, in my opinion. And I'm going to be night and day from where I was next July. So, just constantly developing. I think I understand positioning a little bit more. And I knew in my head, my coaches knew that was the place I was going to win the fight. I could have won it. I believe I could have won it on the ground if I wanted to go down that avenue. But in my opinion, path of least resistance, right? If you're fighting a striker, take them down, right? I have good grappling. Why not take them down? If I'm fighting a grappler, I think I can outstrike them. And hopefully I get somebody, soon that's kind of like one of those hybrid guys that I consider myself, where it can really, be a really, really good fight.
Right. And when you get, because they're out there, it might be at the pro level by the time you get a good hybrid guy. But when you get a hybrid guy, that's really when you'll be able to strike when you want to strike or initiate grappling when you want to initiate grappling. That's where we've seen, Donald Cowboy Cerrone was incredible Muay Thai, great striker, but he also had a ton of submissions and was a great grappler, right? And he just came to my mind probably at your weight class. Dominic Cruz is a great example. I referred to kind of your footwork as, and obviously you want to be, I know. What I liked about it is it's different, but we were switching stance a lot. So let's just, because there's no real comparison, like it's not right to compare you to Dominic Cruz, but I did say on the broadcast, and it was one of my keys to victory for you was footwork. And you did have great footwork. One of the advantages of being able to switch in and out of southpaw and orthodox is it allows your kicks to be long, and then you can land a kick, put your foot down, and still be fighting, which you did a lot. And sometimes you would change stance at range. And I said it on the broadcast, and I could have been wrong, but it appeared that sometimes when you switched your hips at range, out, that Cam then had to recalculate his next shot, right? Because your hips were different. How much of that do you think was throwing him off being, you're at distance range, you're not in tight, and you're switching your hips back and forth?
Yeah, that was all like calculated.
Oh, yeah.
I wanted to be southpaw for this fight. I watched a dude he fought before have a little bit of success southpaw. And I knew coming from, I don't want to give too much away, but coming from like
cool.
An open stance positioning, like it's going to be harder for him to get a double leg, right? When he did take me down, I believe it came from when I was in a closed stance position, right? So being able to be in an open stance, keep it far, keep distance. I expected him to kick a little bit more than he did.
Yeah.
He was worried about me catching it and taking him down possibly. But I think overall I was just focused on positioning a little bit more than he kind of understood.
Sure.
I think I was a little bit levels ahead of him in the striking battle, and that's a testament to Will Morrow. I mean, that's
hats off to, and I think I tried to get it in there on the broadcast that Stout is the reigning 247 awards Gym of the Year, and Coach Will and Coach Mike are the coaches of the year. Those are two separate categories. Stout won both. But your fight was so exciting. I might not have had a chance to throw that out there. But it's interesting because you mentioned Hunter Starner, who, last fought Cam when it was at 135. He's now 2-1 as a pro. What's interesting is he had a tighter decision win over Cam than you did. Yours was a much wider gap as far as what it looked like in the cage. And I think one of the reasons is Hunter Starner and Cam Allgeier are basically the exact same height. And there is a difference when you can have, he was southpaw, like you said, so there was still some stylization similar, but it's great when you're already a great wrestler, grappler, ground and pound, which you did use ground and pound, but so much of your at range striking is going to put you at a completely different level at both 35 or 45, wherever you end up fighting. So I guess let's get to round two, since there's so much to talk about.
One thing about that, is being shorter does have advantages. Like Cam's able to get in on my legs easier because he's close to them. Where like him and Starner can it's not necessarily I have to change levels a little bit more to. So there's advantages and disadvantages, obviously. I think at the pro level, though, being able to strike to the head with knees and kicks and stuff, the fight would have been a little bit different and more in my favor. But yeah, the second round, I don't think there was much grappling, if any. Second round, I just kind of, outstruck him. Long punches, not really a secret. I set up a couple shots that I planned on, but to be honest with you, man, I was kind of just flowing. I wasn't thinking. I was just letting my training kind of take over. And I think Cam, I stuffed a couple of his shots in the second round, which I think really frustrated him. And the second round's when I really started to pick up the talking, and I could tell that was kind of getting to him. Just frustration wise, he has a very good poker face, but I think frustration wise, it was kind of getting to him a little bit. That was also kind of in my game plan. And second round, at the end, I land that spinning back kick, and I promise you, if there's 10 more seconds, I think he was going to go down because he healed
the liver. Yeah, the liver hit. It really, yeah.
And I sent Will something this morning where I went for the wrong shot there, and we should have done something else. I could have took him out with the 5 seconds I had left, and I went for the wrong kill shot there. But yeah, he ended the round. I definitely won that round. I think I won the first round too. I don't know what that judge was thinking. Probably the same judge that gave me the said I lost my first round in my second fight too. I don't know what.
Yeah, because you're jumping ahead. The fact that you had 2 30-27s for people that may not know what that means, saying that you won every round, and you had 1 29-28 saying that you lost the first round. The only thing I could think, and judging is weird, is the takedown. Is they saw that big, you said like the body lock, the chest kind of takedown. Yeah.
First round, he did not land it. He literally did not punch me. Like, he straight up did not punch me. He might as well not have gloves on.
Yeah, it was interesting. I think at one point
I was doing a lot of damage. He was bloody, he's not having fun in the first round. I bet if you lost the first round.
At one point, Champ, I'm pretty sure I either thought or said something like, when Cam was on the ground with you because he had taken you down, he wasn't using the advanced amateur rule sets to punch you at all. There was no kind of a seatbelt with a punch. He was just kind of all grappling on the ground, and that's his own choice. But he didn't mix in ground strikes at all against you.
No, I don't think he had much time. He took me down for I think a max amount of 5 seconds. He did hold me against the cage for a little while, but I was doing damage. So I guess maybe if that's what they're going with, then yeah. But yeah, so that first round goes away. Second round, I definitely win. Third round, I mean, Mike and Will are pretty confident I'm up 2-0, but I'm like, they're like, treat it like it's 1-1. So the cage door closed, and I go, Cam, 1-1. I go, it's 1-1, Cam. I was having so much fun, man. That was probably the funnest time I ever had in my life. Like, looking back, just like in that 15 minutes of us, getting water, the 9 minutes of us fighting and in between the cage, that was the most fun I've ever had in my life. And third round, man, I think it was just like more of just me having fun. I know I got a couple takedowns in the third round because they were like, just keep doing what you're doing. I was like, Mike, can I take him down? He was like, yeah. He was like, if you want, go for it. So I got like a couple. He was really, every time I did take him down, he got up right away. It's hard to hold down. I know he's got a good jiu-jitsu background. The one way I saw myself losing, if possible, would have been guillotine.
Oh, yeah.
A little bit. That's another reason I kind of stood southpaw. Just because the open stance thing I was talking about earlier. But yeah, that was really the only other way I saw myself losing. So I wasn't really wanting to shoot too much. I thought I could win on the feet. Obviously I did. And then trying to think anything big that happened in the third round. I landed that Superman punch.
Yeah, off the cage.
Yeah, that was good. I like reached back to see where the post was. If you watch it, I reached behind myself, kind of like Cody Garbrandt did, and like when he slugged what's his name, and like I reached back and couldn't find the post, so I was like, oh, it must be right behind me, and I jump off it, but I jumped off the fence.
Yeah.
If I would have jumped off the post, I think I probably would have put him out.
So you wanted to plant your foot against, like, it's about a foot wide post. You wanted to use the post.
Yeah, if you can use that, if you jump off a wall in training, you're going way further than if you jump off the fence. Fence has give.
Yeah.
So I knew where I was. I like saw him. I was like, there's two posts right next to me. So I reached back and I felt the fence. I thought that meant the post was like right behind me, and I jumped off. But I jumped off the fence. If I would have jumped off the post, I would have got like 6 more inches of jump.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah, it would have probably landed very, very flush. And then I ended up taking him down. Just had more fun. Talked a little bit. I absolutely respect Cam and his team like so much. I talked to them afterwards. But when you're in there, man, it's just you're trying to kill each other, so you might as well talk about it.
Well, I know that you've always been a great personality, faith and belief in yourself, and you started out your journey at Immortal and then came over to Stout literally a year ago yesterday. Was your 1-year anniversary, so it's pretty fantastic. But is your in cage talking game kind of like Kevin Holland? Is it starting to really develop on its own as well? Because there's a comfortability level to be able to fight and talk, and the talk can actually help you. Kevin Holland talked a lot about how the more he talks, the more he feels engaged in what he's doing.
I don't know, man, because Cam actually was the first one to say something. He like 2 seconds in, he landed a kick, or he threw a kick, and it like grazed my cup. And I was like, I looked at Chip, and I was like, or I pulled my cup, and Chip was like, "You good?" And Cam goes, "Yeah, he's good." And I was like, "Oh, we're talking now." And then it just went on from there. Yeah, but it's just something that kind of goes. Like if you're in that flow state where you're kind of just going, you're gonna say some stuff. It's gonna be more fun, right? As soon as they stopped, I literally shook Cam's hand, and I was like trying to be buddy, which is funny because I was saying something 5 seconds before, but it was like it just snapped me out immediately.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, this has been incredible. I think what we'll do is I'll let you and your team obviously figure out with Jim Mooney and everybody else, figure out what your next steps are. I love having you on before and after fights. So we're just going to make this one all about you being the champ. So that way we're not distracting with some of that future talk, but your future is bright. You have shown, and I think it's wonderful. I asked you in the cage, and you talked about being a year at Stout. So it's just fantastic to see your trust and your willingness to really follow what the coaches at Stout are doing with you in the direction. So you were already ranked so high up. I guess that apology is going to have to bump you up even higher, but obviously number one, baby, number one. Yeah. It seems like you're going to be number one. I mean, it's just incredible. You took out, I think, number 3, I think is where Cam was ranked, something like that.
It was tied for 1 with Chase Boyd. Maybe
different name, I think, but yeah, I do remember that they had a double one.
Yeah, no, Drew Dixon.
Yep. Who's 7-1 or something like that. Yeah.
But he hasn't fought since 2021. So I fought now 5 times since his last fight. So I'm number 1. Clearly.
Yeah. You clearly are. I mean, that's what's incredible. I can't wait to have you back on when you're talking about whenever your next fight comes around. But enjoy this win. Congratulations to you and your team. You've been listening to Luke Basin from MMA Fancast with the reigning featherweight amateur champion for 247 Fighting Championships, Lucas the Sniper Seibert. Thanks, brother.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
You got it, bud. All right, bud. Bye-bye.